So here we are, my friends, at chapter 12, and folk have said, did you do some research for this book? I certainly did. Here's one of the publications that I used about the Amazon, and you get the idea from the picture there just what kind of environment Bel and Gus would have been in. We left off at the end of chapter 11. They were coming back from the visit to the grave of Duncan. So I'll read on. Gus had another concern which he would have to express to Belinda that night at the campfire. When he'd stood behind her at the gravesite, he'd noticed that her wound was very bad and festered. She'd never complained about it, but he was afraid it was not very good and would need to be cleaned. He'd come to see about Bel that while she was an excellent communicator and they were getting close in an uncle-niece kind of a way, she was not one who would grumble or complain, and it may be that her head was not comfortable, but she probably wouldn't even mention it to him. She had many admirable qualities and seemed to have adjusted her mind to the unusual situation they found themselves in. As a young man, Gus would have believed that only military training could have equipped a young one to be as adaptable as this. But Bel was proving what he'd long known. Given the best military training, some people still ruin their lives, maybe at home or perhaps in adversity of some kind. On the other hand, there were other folk who had a substance about them. No matter what happened, they would adapt and they would make the best of their lives, and all that without any military training. It was not survival of the fittest, it was survival of the adaptable. In this sense, Gus felt Bel was well worthy of saving and a useful companion whatever happened. Belinda would adapt. It was at this point that the girl broke into Gus's thoughts. "Do you want me to go in front, Gus?" He looked unsure. "Let me, it's here where the snake was, and I don't have a phobia about them at all." Gus gave way, and he was more relieved than he would have liked to admit that the snake was not seen at all. Soon they were back at the camp, and as they busied themselves preparing food, rebuilding the fire, Gus had once again the distinct feeling that they were actually being watched. He had heard soldiers express that feeling in the war, though he'd not experienced it personally. There was some feeling inside him that bothered him. If they were being watched, was it by humans, or was it animal eyes? Were they benign watchers, or were they malignant watchers? Who knew what secret terrors might be lurking among the dense forest? Of course, Gus expressed none of this to his companion. He would only tell her when it became necessary. Why worry her, he reasoned. That night at the campfire he discussed and cleaned the wound on Belinda's head. She said it was sore a little and at times seemed to be throbbing. The alcohol he used to clean it stung some, but Belinda just sat there and let him work away without a word of complaint. That night, as Bel slept peacefully, Gus lay for 3 hours, worries going through his head, watching eyes. Would there be floods? Snakes. All these things worried him. The next morning as Gus awoke, he realised that Bel had already got the kettle on and is sitting with a pen and paper writing down furiously all she can remember of what she'd seen. Looking over her shoulder, he's very pleased to see a fairly decent drawing of a monkey near Duncan's grave. Underneath she'd written, "Maybe a new species, in which case I will call it Duncan's spider monkey." As they breakfasted, Gus told her some of the basic rules of survival in the world. "Wild places, new rules," he said. "We need to know what we can eat, Bel. I see berries, nuts, fungi for a start. There may be roots, also I can fish maybe and maybe trap animals, but what I do not know is this, what is safe to eat. You see, Bel, nature, or God if you like, has provided many edible plants, but there are many poisonous ones too. One rule is this, avoid any plant with milky sap or white berries." "Why, Gus?" "I don't know, Bel, I just know that it is not possible to eat these without risk. Another rule is it's better to be hungry than to be poisoned." "Ha, I go along with that." "I remember another good rule. Before you test a plant, make it sure it is plentiful. Why go to the trouble of testing something that you've got to hunt to find?" "That makes sense," Bel said. "Anything else?" Oh yes, some plants are okay to eat, but not if they're contaminated by insects or grubs. Also, and this is important, some things are edible in one place and not in another. In the Mediterranean, for instance, there are acorns that are very edible. But those common that you picked up as a child, you did pick them up as a child, yeah? Oh yes, Gus. In the forest, often. We used to bring them home and play with them. In Ireland, yes. Well, they're not the best. They contain stuff, is it called tannin? Yes, that's right, Gus. Well, they must be boiled for hours and you have to keep changing the water until the water stays clean. Then all the tannins are gone. Then they'll be a dark brown. Now when they're roasted, they're edible. But they do need very thorough roasting. Of course, Gus, there should be Brazil nuts around here. I know that. They look very different on a tree. A lot of the nuts are in a kind of capsule and they fall to the ground all together as one. Yeah. What we must do, Bel, is this. We must select sustainable plants and test them for edibility. How? Do we just eat them? No, we try first a contact test. Say with the leaves or stalks we find a good specimen and then we crush it on sensitive skin somewhere. If it produces a reaction, maybe a rash or a blister or something, we know it is not suitable, we avoid it. So when we've done that, we can eat it. Not necessarily. If it looks like we could cook it then, do not try it raw. Some plants may be harmful raw, but not cooked. So you cook it and then you try eating it. Not so fast, Bel. In the German Army survival course we were told first place on your lips for 3 minutes. If you feel your lips burning or tingling, throw the plant away. And then you can eat. No, Bel. Caution is the word here. Next you put the plant on your tongue, but you do not chew it. 15 minutes should be enough, I think. If you have no bad reaction by then, well, you still do not eat it. No? No. Bel was amused by all this checking process. So what do you do now? You chew it, Bel, but you do not swallow it for 15 minutes. And then at last, no, then you take a very small portion of the plant, maybe the portion you've been chewing, then you wait for 8 hours. 8 hours? Yes, and you eat nothing, just drinking clean water. What if you feel ill? Then you make yourself vomit and you pray. Wow, I would have just tried something and hoped. No, Bel, we must be cautious. Of course, the leaves of a plant may be poisonous, but the root might be eatable. We must experiment together. So, that's enough for tonight, my friends. Thanks for following along, and lots of love to you from Kate and I. Bye-bye.